Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
It sounds to me like you and the department feel like our rules are protective enough as they might get more so as the committee processes them. And you know I'm new here. But one of the lessons I've learned in the last month or so is that statute trumps rule.
Correct.
Good, I got something right.
That's important.
So Representative Chapman's bill, LD 750, does a couple of things. One is a moratorium, and two is a set of beefier, in my opinion, beefier standards in the statute. And we have, as you know, Senator Saviello's sort of concept draft of statute, potential to change the statute as we work on the rules. So, setting aside the moratorium question, would the department see any harm or have any objection to incorporating some of the, for lack of a better term, beefier provisions that Representative Chapman proposes into some statutory changes?
With respect to block caving, Representative Martin asked if I would look into that and discuss it with the committee during the work session, and I said, of course, we'll look into that, and if it makes sense to incorporate that, which could very well, we'd be happy to do that. The concepts that were provided in LD 750, I believe, are actually already in the provisionally adopted rules. Part of the reason why I provided testimony with the section numbers and locations in the copy of the rule that you have is to ask you to go back there to see whether or not those concepts have been captured. It's our contention, it's our belief that those concepts are actually already captured in the provisionally adopted rule, with the exception perhaps of block caving. We are certainly willing to entertain ways to clarify or make the rule better, but before taking a concept and saying that's a great concept, let's add that in there, even though it's already in there once. I would just encourage the committee to just go back to the language to see whether or not that concept's already been captured.
But if it's only in the rules and not in the statute, wouldn't you think that having it in the statute would make it a better statute?
That's a situation that the committee will have to grapple with. As long as the rules don't conflict with the statute, it doesn't matter to us because we have to abide by the rules as long as they don't conflict with the statute. And the concepts that we're talking about here don't conflict with the provisionally adopted rules.
So you don't really have an opinion or a position about what we do with this to possibly amend the statute?
Our position is that as long as it doesn't conflict with our provisionally adopted rules, we would be, it's up to the committee.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, it's up to the committee regardless.
Representative Welsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Ms. Parent. So following up on this good senator's line of thinking, two things. A major substantive rule that is approved by the legislature, understanding it would not be in conflict with the statute or that we do something that would have the same power, if you would, over the department to follow that as the statute would. Is that correct or not?
That's correct, provided that there's no conflict.
Right.
The statute, most statutes are very general intentionally to allow, the regulatory body to develop detailed rules that can, evolve over time as understandings evolve. Part of the reason why 1991 versus 12 made sense to look at. It was the evolution over time. Some statutes are much more specific. The Federal Clean Air Act and the 2012 Maine Metallic Mineral Mining Act are examples of much more specific statutes. Ultimately, once a rulemaking has been undertaken and the public process has occurred during that undertaking, which is what has happened here, we are obligated to follow the rules as we would the statute. And that's, of course, with one caveat that the statute comes from rules. So as long as they're consistent or not inconsistent, intentionally double negative there, they both hold the same weight to us. We are obligated to follow the rule as we would be obligated to follow the statute.
Right. So then, my second question is, if the moratorium part were removed, you would, in general, be supportive of this bill? Is that, I'm hearing you correctly?
I am not supportive of the bill because the concepts that are provided in the second part of the bill, the non-moratorium part of the bill, we believe are already in the provisionally adopted rule.
So, okay, so if it were not in statute, but if we incorporate, if this were instructive to the rulemaking as opposed to a standalone statute, I guess what I'm getting at is you're supportive of the issues raised in this bill that are trying to protect.
We're supportive of the issues raised, but it's already been done in our opinion. So it's not a necessary bill and would be not as clean an approach for either the legislature to follow or for the department to follow the legislature's direction.
Dan, maybe one thing you could do is work with DEP and pick out, as she has done, some of the statutes that match up to what's suggested in 750. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, where it's already covered under the rule, because I think Heather has given us some examples, and working together, we may be able to put together a format for the crew to see whether or not the language may not be the same, but it matches. There's something there.
The rules?
It's actually all the stuff they've asked for is in the rules.
And we compare the two statutes as well.
Yeah, we can, but I think, okay. I think if you find that the rules do it.
What LD 750 states in that section is, once now the moratorium's in place, direct DEP to go back and do rulemaking to incorporate the following things.
That's right.
And that's what I'm
Just
saying
change
is,
the statute. Just
you know,
change the
we've
law.
already done it. And so that's why it's not necessary.
Maybe answers the question. Other questions for Heather? Yes, Representative Marsh.
Yeah, just to follow up to that, it'd be helpful if staff could prepare how that's been done.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Prepare.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
looking at those issues here, how do the rules apply?
It's kind of what I.
My testimony that you all have in front of you actually point by point goes down. I consolidated two bullets together because they're both captured under the same provision of the law. With that exception, it literally follows point by point.
Right, thank you. I agree with that, but I think it'd be helpful if we took President Patton's proposal and did the same thing later. Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have one quick question. EPA, you mentioned that you consulted with EPA, I assume over the Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act. Is there any requirement for us to talk to them about mining rules?
No. In addition to the fact that they just wanted us to clarify the section of the law and also the section of the rule very specifically says a permit under this does not relieve you from obligations to get all of these other permits. And so therefore, if you can't get another permit, then you can't go forward. So if you are proposing to do something that would violate the Clean Water Act, you still must comply with the Clean Water Act and all permits that are necessary. So it was very, very explicit, and at the request of EPA, we made it even more explicit and repeated it in a couple of places just to make it clear. You can't inject stuff into the ground, which would be a violation of the underground injection control law. You just can't do it.
Other questions? Heather, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so here's the plan. We've got approximately 20 people or so that have signed up. I'm going to use this to start with. 1 second. And so we're going to start with those that have come more than 150 miles. And it doesn't matter if you're for or against, you just state what you're for or against. So we've got 5 people. And we'll start with Robert Dorsney. And if I pronounce your name wrong, I'm going to give it to my good representative. So she can pronounce it wrong. And well, so it's her fault. Let me just get this set. Members of the pod already sorted it out, so it comes out that way. Welcome.
Thank you,
Oh,
Senator.
wait, I have to make, the day after you came to the legislature, that's when news stopped. All right.
Play that as long as
That is too late.
You freshmen are sticking together.
Yeah, right. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Salvio, Representative Welch, and committee members, and thanks for the opportunity to testify and for the work you're doing for the state of Maine. I'm Bob Dorsey, the president of the Ruthie Partnership for Progress. I represent about 160 companies in Ruthie County that are focused on economic development. As I briefed this committee in 2012 and 2013 on the potential economic value of mining for both Aroostook and Maine, you know of the hundreds of jobs, the $45 million a year increase to our GDP, and the over $120 million estimated tax revenue for the state, as well as the opportunity to create many new supporting businesses. I've briefed this committee on the need for higher paying jobs to help us retain and attract younger workers and families back to Maine. The fact that the county's 18 to 44-year-old workforce is 27%, which is unsustainable currently. I've briefed this committee and Aroostook legislators that technology has advanced greatly since the 50s and 60s, and at an even greater pace in the last 20 years. Just across the border in New Brunswick, there's a great example of responsible mining, mine closure, and they're currently looking at 5 new mining opportunities today. They've also won 10 national safety awards. And I've also briefed that mining is the most heavily regulated industry in the United States. I'm sure the committee is aware that Maine's roughly $50 billion economy is largely based on our natural resources. Forestry, agriculture, fishing, and the associated value-added processing and transportation contribute greatly. Mining can add to it. In the big picture, Maine is currently in a very competitive environment with a great many challenges, as you're all aware. Aging workforce, high energy costs, excessive regulations, deaths exceeding births, out migration, we're all aware. Maine Biz stated we lost over 70 manufacturing firms in 2011 and 2012 alone. Other states are actively pursuing our companies and our youth. Jobs Ohio last year assisted 276 companies, created over 21,000 new jobs, and that's the environment we're in. 4,700 baby boomers a day retiring all over the United States, and we're trying to retain our youth and our young folks that are for the future. Given this situation, I'd argue that now is not the time to say no to any opportunity or to put a moratorium on any of our natural resources. Now is the time to encourage new jobs and investment, to establish great rules for mining, to make an example of Maine as a state that can do it and do it right. Let DEP, engineers, and technology work and do their job, and embrace a tremendous economic development opportunity that can greatly help Aroostook County and the state of Maine that's desperately in need of growth. Bottom line is now is not the time to say no to opportunity and job potential. It is the time to say no to LD 750 and get on with the rules of LD 146 and make them appropriate for the activity. Thank you.
Questions? Representative Green.
Good morning.
Morning.
Do you have data that you could share with us, reports and studies about the economic impacts and the job, predicted job outcomes of a project like this that you could share with the community?
Yes, I do. We've got models that we've put the models in. I provided it in 2012. I can certainly provide it again.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Thank you for coming all the way down this morning.
Thank you.
Holly Humphrey?
Good morning, Senator Salviello, Representative John Welch. My name is Holly Humphrey. I'm a resident of Portage Lake. I first testified before this committee a couple of years ago. At that point, I was serving as town manager of Portage Lake, and I spoke to you on behalf of the economic value that mining would possibly bring to follow up with what Mr. Dorsey just mentioned here. Our background, agriculture. I'm a fifth-generation potato farmer from Washburn. We've watched changes come through the pike from regulating farms to the point that even now you need to have a portable outhouse on a farm, whereas before you could run out into the woods. So today, I'm going to speak to you in a different fashion. You've heard the pros and cons from both sides. I'd like to work for you as one who has come from a background of 22 plus years with USDA, Natural Resources Conservation Service. I served all over the United States and overseas in the capacity of a soil conservation technician, to a sociologist, to a community planner. I developed on the national policy, NEPA, where we brought in what we are trying to enhance here today, the human element, both sides looking at what is the best course of action for a project to undertake. It is, in my opinion, because of the companies I've worked with on a national level, such as the Department of Environmental Protection, FEMA, everyone else, that we have a set of standards and specs that, yes, they may need to be enhanced, broadened, but we have got qualified rules in place, people who have done this. We can do the work. I believe that there are the abilities to move forward with mining and to have it in a healthy, productive manner. If the Callahan mine was put on the docket today, it would never pass because of the environmental location. It should have never been passed, but that is how the evolution of rulemaking has come into serving those of us today in a better way. As I mentioned, the changing in agriculture, the laws that we have to follow are definitely different than when my grandfather first started farming. They're different when I started farming because they are always evolving to protect us. And I truly believe that with the Department of Environmental Protection, the LUPC, they are going to put forth every effort to protect that watershed. I mentioned to you that I am from Portage Lake. I live on Portage Lake. My home at one point was 10 feet from the edge of the water. When I was town manager, I enhanced shoreline zoning rules and regulations because we want to protect our natural resources. I ask you as a committee to move forward, to look at this. I am not in favor of LD 750. I am an proponent of this, and I would like to see you take into consideration the science, the technology that is in place that we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Phil Daggett.
Well, a lot of esteemed people here this morning, some of who I know, Representative John Martin, who's actually one of my neighbors in northern Maine, operating and owning a sporting lodge as we do. So I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to give testimony this morning. I wish I have done so last year, another opportunity today. So I'm going to stay really with the format that I've pretty much passed out, but I have a few thoughts listening to a lot of information about the mining and the consequences of not doing it well. So just we'll expand on that a little bit. So I am Phil Daggett, co-owner and president of Hughesbrook Lodge, which has been in my family 5 generations. 5 generations of Maine guides, by the way. We are a 4-season sporting lodge located on Fish River in Township 14, Range 7. Our location is approximately 10 miles northeast of the mining operation. So crow flies, right there. So, having said that, I certainly have a vested interest in the mining operation being done extremely well, has to be regulated, has to be done in measures that probably exemplify best mining practices that has been done in the U.S. thus far. That would be my position on that. As owners of the family business, we have given this much consideration and have chosen to support the passage of LD 146. We offer a few points of interest in support of Irving, which is a result of our relationship with them over the past 25-some years. We have been a witness to their long-term commitment to maintaining a viable, working force and ecosystem. They have been steadfast in their involvement with Northern Maine in creating jobs. They have the resources to sustain this mining operation, which could easily exceed 25 years, and the foresight to reclaim the land upon completion. From an economic perspective, this will bring 300 direct and approximately 400 indirect jobs, representing $121 million in taxes. Given the latest news from Governor LePage and cuts with revenue sharing, this would be a great stimulus for our economy. In closing, I'd like to thank this committee and everyone here for this opportunity to support Irving in moving forward. This is our time to bring economic development to Northern Maine and to overall the state of Maine. A couple other pieces I'd like to just touch on briefly. I just was in Aroostook at my lodge just 2 days ago, finishing up a snowmobile season from January to the end of March, going into April. Our guests come from Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Pennsylvania, New York, Boston, Vermont. That is our clientele. They come to Northern Maine for the hospitality, for the pristine environment that we have, and to enjoy the resource that we, and I say at times, I take for granted because I grew up in Northern Maine. I've been there all my life. I've retired from the school system as a counselor. I'm now full-time at the lodge promoting our business, taking care of the clients. So again, they come to this area for pristine environment and to just get away from other things that are really occupying their time and as busy as everyone is. So when I think about the mining,
If you would summarize now, please, thank you.
when I think about the mining, the context of a preventative measure in my mind is in direct relation to the geographic area of Bald Mountain. Thusly, a well-thought-out engineering model is imperative. And I believe that that can be done and will be done. No question in my mind.
Thank you very much. And I
Thank
would
you.
just remind people, this is not about Bald Mountain specifically or about Irving. I know that's at the top of people's minds,
Yes.
but this is really about the whole state of Maine.
Thank you.
About that. So, thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, Representative Carlos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's what, I just read your testimony and it said for this opportunity to support Irving, and I was just going to ask you if you did know that it was a statewide mining.
Yes.
Thank you.
Because it's right in that Pacific area that, in my mind, is a focus. But absolutely, for the state of Maine as a whole, I understand that. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much. We've got Teresa Fowler. Teresa Fowler.
And then on deck is Larry Fitzgerald.
Good morning, Senator Saviello, Representative Welch, and distinguished members of the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. My name is Teresa Fowler, and I am the Executive Director of the Central Aroostook Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, I live in Aroostook County. We serve over a dozen communities, including Portage Lake and Nashville Plantation, both near the area that has attracted mining interest over many years. I would urge this committee to vote ought not to pass on LD 750. Our Chamber of Commerce, like the State Chamber of Commerce, encourages and supports economic growth. Placing a moratorium on a potential source of employment and revenue goes against all that Chambers of Commerce work toward. We strive to improve the lives of the people in the area we serve by furthering the interests of business. I would argue that LD 750 is a superfluous bill, as the laws presently being developed require all that is stated in LD 750. Further, the news that Maine has placed a moratorium on any potential business is not a message that we, the residents of Maine, want to send. Although the definition of moratorium is a temporary halt to an activity, it is more commonly understood to mean an end to an activity. As our economy struggles to keep up with changing needs and demands, I urge you to not pass LD 750 and put a moratorium on an activity that could create hundreds of direct and indirect jobs and significant revenue for the state of Maine. We are fortunate that technology has improved over the past hundreds of years, as has the understanding of consequences of actions. This will all be considered during the development of regulations for metallic mining in Maine. We are fortunate in Maine to have expert staff in many departments who work daily to ensure that businesses operate safely. Thank you for your time and consideration of our plea that you vote on to pass on LD 750. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming down.
I appreciate it.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Good morning. My name is Larry Fitzgerald. I'm a professional geologist. I'm here to speak about one specific aspect of LD 750, and that's the term geologically stable. The objective of the use of the term in LD 750, I think, is admirable. It's looking for predictability. I think that's a good thing. But when you ask a geologist to certify that conditions are going to remain unchanged for the next 1,000 years, you're asking us to basically predict the future. And that's a tough position for any profession to be in. When you look at the granite steps to the front of this building, I mean, people would generally think of granite as solid and stable, and the steps to this building are cracked. I mean, stuff happens. This is a map of the geology of the Portland area. Those are all fault lines, all around Portland, all the way up to Hartsville. Is that area geologically stable? One could argue a couple different directions. The objective, I think, of LD 750's use of the term is to protect groundwater. When you look at the state of Maine, though, a third to 40% of the state of Maine has arsenic concentrations above a drinking water standard. That's an issue. That's naturally occurring. When you look at the concentrations in groundwater at Bald Mountain, the blue is the drinking water standards, the federal drinking water standards. The orange was observed at Bald Mountain in 1982. We exceed, by orders of magnitude, the drinking water standards for arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, mercury. It's not pristine now. So to say in this thing, the standard, that you want a geologically stable environment to protect groundwater, I think it depends how you define geologically stable and what environment you're trying to protect. Should it make it worse? No. But I think it needs to be recognition that there is major impacts around a lot of these deposits. I couldn't find it this morning, but I have a map from the 1950s that the U.S. Geologic Survey prepared that looked at mineral deposits throughout the state, particularly for metallic minerals, and there's hundreds of them in every county in the state. And I wish I could have put my hands on it, but I haven't. I've moved in the meantime, and I've got to put my hands on it. But I'm here, I'm leaving a little time if you've got questions. That was really all my testimony.
Questions? Yeah, Senator, Representative Martin.
Thank you. As you may know, I teach at the University of Maine, Fort Cannon. About 10 years ago, my students did water tests on that very region.
Oh, sorry.
And we found exactly what you're showing in that graph. It was really amazing to me at the time. So thank you for bringing, maybe you'll give us a copy of that.
I can certainly.
If you could, email it to Tyler.
Yeah.
And make copies.
Thank you.
Isn't that so easy? Questions? Okay, thank you.
Bruce Taylor.
Bruce Taylor.
Bruce Taylor, speaking in support of LD 750. Maine can be proud that it is a small state with small government. However, strict regulation of mining is demanded by recent history, such as the Callahan Mine or the 2014 Mount Holly disaster in British Columbia. Specific comments on LD 750, and using the terminology, I'd say some uncaptured concepts. Health assessment. There is no health impact assessment, and this has to be, as was pointed out, this is a statewide bill in areas that already have pre-existing high levels of toxic materials. It is imperative that a human health assessment impact be included. Existing demographic factors and disease burdens such as asthma must be assessed in regard to mining. As pointed out, many private wells have elevated levels of arsenic and other toxins. What will mining seepage or dispersion of dust do? Watersheds have been linked to disease from distant point sources. Cancer risk in children has been associated with the mother's location in a watershed. The effects of proximity of living near a mining site are well demonstrated in the literature. The pervasiveness of neurotoxic lead from the Tar Creek mining Superfund site on children's intellectual development has been shown. Certainly health problems will cause as one said, an out-migration. Number 2 that isn't covered, smelting or heating in general that releases particulates and toxic into the air. Smelting is a critical source of pollution ignored in proposed Chapter 200. Smelting is not like any other process involved in mining, but is quantitatively and qualitatively different and must come under strict supervision and regulation. In 2012, the engineering department at University of Arizona published, I quote, "Although there are numerous natural and anthropogenic sources of atmospheric particulates, mining operations pose the greatest potential risk to human health and environment." Further, they found smelting and slag dumps generate the most particulate matter. Particulate matter generated by smelting is especially dangerous due to its dispersal over large areas and can settle in soil, water, and biota. This is not 1,000 years ago. This will happen today. The air quality standards in Section 22L are wholly inadequate, vague, and not protective of the public's health. Hazardous air pollutants should be monitored at the flue and downwind in several locations. A program such as the Dust Regional Atmospheric Model should be done by an independent party. Continuous monitoring for hazardous pollutants such as metal, cyanide, and particulate matter should be deployed. And time. Metallic mining will have a health and environmental impact on Maine and its citizens for many future generations. The air and watersheds, as you all know, really come from the western mountains and go west or from northeast to southwest throughout the entire state of Maine. And this law will apply, and as was pointed out, there could be metal deposits in a population center. This law will apply by my read of it throughout the whole state. The maximum achievable control technologies, which is an EPA definition to abate hazardous air and water pollutants, must be installed. Maximum effective monitoring and abatement technologies must be mandated. The land disrupted by mining processes must be returned to a stable condition so as to never pose a health risk to the public. None of the abatement and remediation costs should fall to the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Oh, question? Representative Martin, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. And to see your second page on the air quality standards,
Yes, sir.
you are aware that the federal law would apply, and even if our standard did not meet, we would have to still meet the federal standard.
Yes, sir. But I think looking at, say, for example, the asthma rates in Aroostook County, which has the highest, Cary Medical Center has the highest ER admission rate of 105.6 per 10,000 population. And I think that, again, there needs to be very close monitoring. And if not measured, is not able to correct. And looking at 22L, they went from the original proposal back, what was in September of last year, where they had 3 lines, and now they've gone to 10 lines. And I think when you're talking about, they've completely ignored air quality and dust, which, as the Department of Engineering at the University of Arizona showed, it's probably with mining where the most toxic, and certainly water is very important. And again, I think they're going to have to model cumulative risk. And cumulative risk is where you get multiple insults, not only from water, but from air, from multiple chemicals. And this is a very, I'm not against mining, but it needs to come under very strict control. And I don't think there's good control. Don't know anything about legislation, but I read the 10 lines in 22L. I was shocked when they went through all the other lines on water.
Thank you. I just want to point out for those that are listening in Aroostook that Mr. Taylor is from Sweden, Oxford County, not New Sweden, Aroostook County.
That's right. Although I got this information from this, I accessed this last night through the Maine CDC website.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Katie Green.
Katie Greenman. Welcome.
Thank you. Senator Saviello, Representative Walsh, and members of the committee. My name is Katie Greenman, and I am here presenting testimony written by Dennis Chinoy of Bangor. It is neither radical nor naive to predict regulating mining in Maine on a yardstick for geologic stability of 1,000 years. It is neither business-friendly nor business-unfriendly, jobs-friendly nor jobs-unfriendly. It is simply and entirely rational and facing the facts. You have already heard over and again that in our state with high sulfide deposits, a wet climate, and predictions of more extreme weather events going forward, metallic mining will be an extremely risky business over time. That time is not measured in decades in the life of an individual, a corporation, or a surety bond. It's geologic time. LD 750 does not go that far.